Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Welcome back in. It has been a bit. So glad to be back. We have a big show for you. We are going to talk. It's an NBA playoff prediction show. We're going to break down every single first round matchup, go over the play-ins, go over the first round in the West, the East, go over a little bit of the WNBA draft that happened last night. Big basketball show. We're also going to give some predictions further into the NBA playoffs, as well as any other big news that happens during the show. But before we get into all of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. It'll pop up on the bottom of the screen. That way you, me, everybody else around the world can see what you had to say. You can control what we talk about on the show. If you leave that message with the tip and donation, we can talk about whatever you would like. All you need to do is go to that link on screen right now, gsmcpodcast.net, and leave that tip or donation. We appreciate anything that you do give, and we appreciate you guys for watching. But like I was saying, today is going to be a big NBA show. We are going to start it off in the Western Conference today. We're going to do a whole segment on the Western Conference, break down the matches we do know, talk about the seeding, what I expect to happen. Then we'll do the East in the second segment and dedicate our third segment to all of the play-in games. Play-ins start tonight. The Lakers and the Pelicans play at 7. We'll talk about all of that. And then in the fourth segment, we'll talk about the WNBA draft. But like I was saying, the first segment, the NBA Western Conference predictions. The Western Conference is set. It has been basically set for quite some time. We knew the teams that were going to be in there. They were just jockeying for position, especially at the top there. You had your top three teams in OKC, Denver, and Minnesota, all jockeying for that number one seed in the West. At the end of the day, Oklahoma City edges out the other two to get that number one overall seed. An incredible season for a team that young. You know, you have Shea, you have Chet, you have Jalen Williams, you have all these guys that are super young and promising, building up a really, really strong team, strong foundation for years and years to come with plenty of assets to build around them. That team's going to be very good for a very long time, and they're already the best team in a very, very, very strong West. Very impressive season for them. We're going to wait and see who they play. They're going to play the 8th seed, which could be any of those play-in games. So we'll wait and see exactly who they are playing. The second seed in the West is going to be the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets we're also going to wait and see and play. We'll know who they play after tonight. They will either play New Orleans or the Lakers. The winner of that game will go on to play Denver, the reigning defending champions of the NBA, the team that has the probable MVP in Nikola Jokic, and a team that seems kind of unstoppable. They might not be the 1 seed, but they seem like a pretty much unstoppable team right now in the West, and that's in a very, very talented Western Conference. One of those two teams will play Denver, but we're going to start this off by breaking down the two playoff matchups that we do know for sure. We'll start with Minnesota, the Timberwolves taking on the Phoenix Suns. Minnesota is the 3 seed, Phoenix is the 6 seed. The Suns come into this matchup, they have all that preseason hype. You know, they bring together this big three. They trade for Kevin Durant at last trade deadline, pair him up with Devin Booker. Then they go and get Bradley Beal from the Wizards. They have this haul. It didn't work out exactly how they would have liked it to. Bradley Beal has been in and out of the lineup all year with injuries. It hasn't been a perfect season for them, no matter how you slice it. You take a look at the rest of that roster down the line, it's a little weak. They've done stuff to improve it. You know, you have a lot of okay depth. Depth was the big issue for them because they were right against the salary cap with just those 3 guys, basically, that being Beal, Booker, and Durant. But they can score, and they can score with the best of them. You know, you have these 3 superstars, any of which can go for 40-plus any night, any given night. It's a really tough matchup for these teams, but if there is a team that's going to be able to take them, it's going to be one of the best defenses in the league. It's going to be a team that has incredible perimeter defense. Rudy Gobert anchoring down there at the bottom, probably going to be the defensive player of the year. Although, as we talked about on Wednesday's show, I think it should be Wemby. Rudy Gobert down there, locking down the post, probable defensive player of the year, and then incredible outside defense as well. It's going to be a really, really tough series. The Suns are a team that want to play at a fast pace. They want to put up points. They want to speed you up. They just want to score because they have the ability to put up 140 points a game. Where on the other side of the coin, you have a team like Minnesota who they can also put up points, but their defense is tops in the league, one of the best in all of the NBA. If you go by defensive rating, it is the best in all of the NBA. So it's kind of a battle between offense and defense. The Phoenix Suns, again, if you go by offensive rating, have the 10th best offense in the league, while they have, not a great defense down there. Still in the top half of the league, but at 13, so kind of a middling average defense. But they have their strengths. They're elite at one thing, and it's opposite. Generally, in these matchups, we see it all the time. The defensive team tends to take these. And that's not to say that a team like the Timberwolves, who have the 17th ranked defense by offensive rating, can't score, right? You have Anthony Edwards, who's electric, can also put up 40 points on any given night. There's a chance that Karl Anthony Towns is back. I know he was coming back soon, making a return. You add him back into that mix, that offense immediately gets better. You saw the difference of when he was before he got injured and after he got injured. It's going to be a fun series. These teams both kind of have a big three. The Suns' big three is much bigger names, but they are older players, generally. I'm very excited for this series. I have the Timberwolves taking this one in 6 games, just because I think their defense is going to be able to propel them past this round. Anthony Edwards is going to be able to shoulder that load on offense, and with Karl Anthony Towns being back in the lineup, he won't have to do everything on his own. It's not to say he can't. He has the ability to do this. But you get those two guys together, they can cause a lot of havoc. They were battling for that 1 seed in the West with 2 incredible teams for a reason. Now, Rudy Gobert's track record in the playoffs has not been the best. I'm well aware of that. You go back to his time with the Jazz with Donovan Mitchell, it was a very similar situation. Elite defense down low, not the greatest offensive option, but it stopped him from getting past the second round. They were pretty consistently able to get into the second round, but past the second round, they could not compete with those top teams. And I think it's going to be a similar story with the Timberwolves this year. This team is better than any of those Utah teams that he was on with Donovan Mitchell. Nothing against Donovan Mitchell. Incredible player. We'll talk about him in the second segment. But he's kind of a liability on offense in the playoffs. And maybe something turns around with this new team, with with scenery, completely new stars alongside him. But as it stands right now, it's not the greatest spot for Minnesota to be in. I do think they can pull this series out. It's not going to be an easy one. The Suns have the star power. We went over it. Beal, Durant, Booker. Those guys can go off. You talk about Booker and Durant, just those two. That's almost impossible to guard. Durant on his own, these guys are scoring machines. And it's going to be a question of who can control the pace of these games. I do think that Minnesota has the ability to play in a faster paced game, while if Phoenix is having to be slowed down, it's going to cost them a lot more than if Minnesota is sped up. So for that reason, I have Minnesota advancing out of this round. It is going to be tight. I have this going 6 games, Minnesota taking it 4-2, moving on to the second round. The other matchup that we do know in the West is the Mavericks taking on the Clippers. The Clippers are the 4 seed, the Mavericks are the 5 seed. The Mavericks have been one of the hottest teams in all of the NBA after the All-Star break. They make that trade for Daniel Gafford, lose Davis Bertans, and make a couple moves at the All-Star break. Their defense improves dramatically. That, again, the Mavs and the Suns are kind of built similarly. The Suns have more of that top-heavy star power, and that's not to say anything against Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, because that is an insane offensive duo. That is one of the best offensive duos in all of basketball. You have Kyrie Irving dishing it out to Luka, who can hit a shot from anywhere. It is so much fun to watch. Their defense has improved. Luka is making a serious case for MVP. I think he definitely has tossed his name into that ring, probably second, maybe first. Maybe he was able to surpass Jokic there. It's a tough road. Everything seems to be pointing to Jokic there, but Luka deserves to at least get second place for what he's done down the stretch. His triple-double, his 30-point triple-double, his scoring, everything he does is incredible. The Mavs have been probably the hottest team in basketball down the stretch of the season, and they take that momentum into Los Angeles to face the Clippers. A Clippers team that is pretty healthy for what they've been in the last couple seasons. You know, Kawhi is still here. They have James Harden, got him at the beginning of the year. Paul George is here as well. They've started to find their rhythm. When James Harden first got there, it wasn't looking good. It took about a week, but they figured it out. Him on the floor together, his ability to dish the ball around, get it to open guys is something that they desperately needed. You still have Westbrook coming off the bench. You still have it's still a pretty deep team over there. Westbrook is quarterbacking the second unit, and Kawhi is still an elite defensive player who can lock down just about anybody. This is a tough series, because if I'm looking at it on paper, I'm thinking I take the Clippers because they have Kawhi, they've got Paul George, they've got James Harden, they've got Russell Westbrook. But in a lot of sports, as we know, it comes down to who's hot at the right time. And right now, the Mavs are the hot hand. The Mavs are the hot team in the NBA. I think I'm going to take the Mavericks here, have them go Mavericks in 7 games. I think that both of these Western Conference series are going to be really good. So are the ones at the top. I think there's some potentially really, really good matchups. All 10 teams in the West are above 500. You talk about a team, and we'll get into this a little bit in our third segment when we talk about the play-in games. Every single team in the West is stacked. It's a crazy, crazy difference to look at where the 10 seed in the West would be if you look at the Eastern Conference standings. And speaking of the Eastern Conference, we will break down those matchups coming up next. But yeah, to recap the West, what we know right now, we'll go over the play-ins in a bit. But the 1 seed is the Thunder. They'll play any of those play-in teams. The 2 seed is going to be the Nuggets. They'll either play the Pelicans or the Lakers. We'll find that out tonight. And then the 2 matchups that we do know, I've got Minnesota. I've got Minnesota over Phoenix in 6 games, and I've got Dallas over Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Clippers, in 7 games. Coming up in our second segment, we will be talking about the Eastern Conference playoffs. We'll break all of that down. We'll be right back on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.